deep within the Vatican Apostolic Archives. Beyond the shelves of centuries-old papal bulls and the reliquaries of forgotten saints, there exists a vault not listed on any map. Its access requires 3 keys, held by 3 different prelates who do not know each other's names. Within this vault, sealed behind a door of lead-lined oak, hangs a painting known only as Il Silenzio di Dio, the Silence of God. It is not large, perhaps 3 feet by 2. Its frame is plain, unadorned ebony, absorbing the light from the single, shielded bulb that illuminates the chamber for 15 minutes each month during the custodial check. The check is performed by a rotating senior cleric who is never told of the duty until the day before, and who is given a mild sedative afterwards. The procedure is not to preserve the painting, but to preserve the viewer. The painting itself is a masterpiece of such devastating, soul-crushing beauty that it feels less like art and more like a captured moment of cosmic trauma. It depicts the Crucifixion, but not as rendered by Michelangelo or Caravaggio. This is a view from behind the cross, looking out over the hill of Golgotha towards Jerusalem. The sky is not dark with theatrical storm clouds, but with a void, an absolute, perfect, and sterile blackness that seems less like an absence of light and more like an act of swallowing presence. The sun is a pinprick of cold white light, like a distant, indifferent star. The focus, however, is not on Christ. It is on the crowd. Every figure in the multitude, the Roman soldiers, the weeping women, the mocking Pharisees, the curious onlookers, is painted with hyper-realistic, excruciating detail. You can see the pores on a centurion's skin, the individual threads of a beggar's tunic, a fly about to land on a child's tear-stained cheek. And every single person, without exception, is looking directly out of the canvas, not at the viewer, but through them. Their eyes wide with a terror so profound it has passed beyond panic into a state of frozen, silent revelation. Their terror is not for the man dying on the cross, it is for what they see in the sky. In that perfect black void above Jerusalem, the artist has painted the subtle, terrifying suggestion of a form. It is not a devil, not a monster. It is something vast, nebulous, and incomprehensible, hinted at by the barest contour of deeper black against black. A subtle warping of the void like a heat haze over a desert. It is the shape of a presence observing the event. The implication is clear. God is there, is watching his son die. And his observation is not filled with grief, or love, or even wrath. It is a look of pure, indifferent, cosmic interest. A scientist observing a predictable chemical reaction. A child watching an ant drown. The horror of Il Silenzio is not in gore, but in theology made manifest as abomination. It posits a single, devastating question. What if the crucifixion was not a sacrifice, but an experiment? What if the silence from heaven was not a moment of divine sorrow, but the quiet of a note-taker? The painting has no known artist, no provenance. It simply appeared in the Vatican inventories in 1527, catalogued amidst the loot from the sack of Rome. The clerk who catalogued it, a brother Matteo, was found the next morning in his cell. His eyes unharmed but utterly blind, whispering and flawless, forgotten Aramaic about the eye that sees but does not weep. He died within a week, refusing all food and water. Repeating one phrase, he was only listening. The drama lies in the painting's slow psychic poison. It does not drive men mad with a shriek, but with a whisper. A celebrated cardinal, a theologian of unshakable faith, insisted on studying it for an hour in 1789 to prove its power was superstition. He emerged pale and composed. He wrote a brilliant, dense treatise on the nature of divine mystery that was hailed as a masterpiece. But his confessor and records, sealed for 2 centuries, documented the cardinal's subsequent nightmares. He would wake screaming, not from visions of hell, but from a sensation of infinite silent scrutiny, of being a specimen on a slide under a cold galactic lens. He died murmuring, "We are not children, we are data." The tears associated with Il Silenzio are never those of fear. They are tears of profound ontological loneliness. A young, idealistic archivist named Luca in the 1950s was left alone with it for 10 minutes due to a faulty time lock. When rescued, He was on his knees, not praying, but simply weeping slow. Silent tears that carved tracks through the dust on his face. He never spoke again, but took to painting small, exquisite watercolors of empty, silent landscapes, beautiful but devoid of any life, human or divine. His final work found after his death was a perfect miniature replica of Il Silenzio, but with one change: the crowd's faces were all his own. The current keeper, an elderly Monsignor named Valenti, has performed the monthly check for 20 years. The ritual is his cross. Each month he enters, feels the weight of the silent vault press upon him, and forces himself to look at the painting for the prescribed 90 seconds. He does not see the artistry. He feels the gaze from the void. It feels he once tried to articulate in a journal he later burned, like being the last living thing in a dead universe. Realizing your entire life, your love, your prayers have been nothing but a faint, curious noise to something immeasurably old and cold. This month, as the shielded bulb flickers to life, Monsignor Valenti notices something new, detail he has somehow missed in 2 decades of dread. In the foreground, a Roman soldier's hand, gripping his spear, is not just tensed. The knuckles are white, the tendons taut, but the thumb is subtly, delicately stroking the shaft. It is not a gesture of aggression. It is a self-soothing gesture. A tiny human attempt to comfort oneself against an incomprehensible horror. This small, devastating detail of shared mortal frailty breaks something in the old priest. He does not scream. He does not go blind. He simply sinks to the cold stone floor, the echoes of the great silent Vatican swelling around him. The tears that come are hot and endless. Not for Christ, not for himself, but for every soul who has ever looked up at a silent heaven and begged for a sign of a father's love, only to be met with the terrifying, beautiful, and indifferent silence of a universe that may perhaps only be watching. The painting's true horror is not that it shows a God who is cruel, but that it suggests a God who is simply fundamentally other. And in that vast, silent otherness, every prayer ever uttered becomes a fossil, and every tear a meaningless drop in an ocean of divine inattention. The Monsignor weeps until the light clicks off, leaving him in a darkness that now feels strangely familiar, and far more comforting than the light had ever been.